The signal came at 3 in the morning, ship time. Lieutenant Commander Kim Yuna was alone in the communications center of the flagship Indomitable. She liked the night shift. It was quiet. Most of the crew slept while she listened to the endless whisper of space. Radio waves, background noise, the slow heartbeat of distant stars. But this sound was different. It started as static, then became something more. A pattern. A rhythm. And then, unmistakably, a voice. Yuna sat up straight in her chair. Her fingers moved fast across the controls. She recorded everything. The voice was strange and high, like wind through broken glass. She did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. She had heard that tone before, in old recordings from Earth's wars. It was the sound of someone begging for their life. She sent a priority alert to the bridge. Admiral Park. Taeho arrived 12 minutes later. He was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face that looked like it was carved from stone. He had commanded ships for 30 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and once, a rogue AI that had taken over a colony ship. Nothing surprised him anymore, but when he heard the recording, his hands tightened on the console. "Get me Dr. Lee," he said. Now, Dr. Lee Hain was the ship's xenolinguist. He studied alien languages, though humanity had met very few aliens. The Galactic Council kept Earth isolated. They said humans were too young, too violent, too dangerous to join galactic society, so humanity stayed in its 12 star systems. Watching the galaxy from the outside, Dr. Lee arrived with messy hair and sleepy eyes. He was a small man, thin and pale, who spent more time with books than with people. But his mind was sharp. He listened to the recording once, then again, then a third time. "It is Veli," he said. "The language of the Veli people." Admiral Taeho frowned. "The healers? Yes, they are known throughout the galaxy for their medical technology. They can cure diseases that kill other species. They are peaceful. They have never fought a war in their entire history." "What are they saying?" Dr. Lee was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "You're saying, they are killing us. Our children, please, anyone, help us." The bridge fell silent. Yuna felt her heart beating hard in her chest. She looked at the Admiral. His face had not changed, but something in his eyes had shifted. Something cold and hard. "Where is the signal coming from?" Taeho asked. "The Veli homeworld," Yuna answered. "Velis Prime. It is 300 light years from here, in the outer arm of the galaxy. Who is attacking them?" Dr. Lee pulled up records on his screen. According to old intelligence reports, the Krath Dominion has been expanding into that sector. The Krath they are conquerors. They have destroyed dozens of civilizations. The Galactic Council has done nothing to stop them. Why not? Because the Krath are powerful, and because the Council believes in non-interference. They call it keeping the peace. Admiral Taeho laughed, but there was no humor in it. Peace. They watch genocide and call it peace. He turned and walked to the main viewport. The stars burned cold and distant in the black void. Somewhere out there, children were dying. Somewhere out there, a peaceful people screamed for help into the darkness, hoping someone would hear. Admiral Yuna said carefully, "We have no treaties with the Veli, no agreements, no obligation. I know. The Galactic Council will be angry if we interfere, I know. It could start a war." Taeho turned back to face her. His eyes were like iron. "Lieutenant Commander, I have a daughter. She is 24 years old. She lives on Earth with her husband and my grandson. When I close my eyes, I can see her face. I can hear her laugh." Paused. "Somewhere on Velis Prime, there is a mother holding her child right now. She is watching the sky burn. She is praying for someone, anyone, to come and save them." He straightened his uniform. "I will not ignore that prayer." He walked to the communications console. "Open a channel to Earth Command. Priority 1. The next 6 hours were chaos. Admiral Taeho presented the distress signal to the United Earth Council. There were arguments, shouting. Some council members said it was not humanity's problem. Others said the risk was too great. A few said they should ask the Galactic Council for permission first. Tejo listened to all of them. Then he stood up and slammed his fist on the table so hard that the sound echoed through the chamber. "They asked for help," he said. His voice was not loud, but it filled the room. A dying people, a peaceful people, sent a message into the void, hoping someone would answer. We heard that message. We have ships. We have weapons. We have soldiers willing to fight. He looked at each council member in turn. If we do nothing, we are no better than the Galactic Council. We become what they are. We become cowards who watch children die and tell ourselves it is not our concern. He placed both hands on the table and leaned forward. I did not join the fleet to be a coward. I did not spend my life among the stars to turn away from those who need us. The Valley called for aid. I say we answer. I say we show this galaxy what humanity is made of. The vote was close. 12 in favor, 9 against. It was enough. The order went out to every ship in the United Earth Fleet. All leave was cancelled. All ships were to report to the main staging area at Titan Station. Weapons were loaded. Fuel tanks were filled. Soldiers said goodbye to their families on the Indomitable. Yuna watched the preparations with a strange feeling in her stomach. Fear, yes. But something else too. Pride, maybe. Or purpose. Dr. Lee stood beside her at the viewport. Do you think we can win? He asked quietly. I do not know, Yuna admitted. The Kraths are powerful. Their fleet is larger than ours. Then why are you smiling? Yuna thought about it for a moment. Because we are doing the right thing. For the first time in a long time, we are doing something that matters. Not for money. Not for power. Not for territory. We are going to help strangers because they asked for help. Because it is right. Dr. Lee nodded slowly. The galaxy has never seen anything like humanity. Oh, Yuna agreed. They have not. Admiral Tejo's voice came over the ship's speakers. He was addressing the entire fleet, soldiers of Earth. We go now to a place we have never been. To fight an enemy we have never met. To save a people we have never known. Some of us will not come back. I will not lie to you about that. But what we do today will echo through history. What we do today will show the galaxy who we are. They called us violent. They called us dangerous. They were right. We are dangerous. We are dangerous to anyone who hurts the innocent. We are dangerous to anyone who preys on the weak. We are the fire that answers the cry in the darkness. He paused. The Valley called for aid. Humanity answers. All ships prepare to jump. And across the fleet, engines roared to life. The fleet gathered at Titan Station. Like wolves preparing for a hunt, 40-7 warships hung in the darkness of space. Battleships with cannons that could crack mountains. Carriers loaded with hundreds of fighter craft. Destroyers built for speed and violence. Troop transports carrying 12,000 of humanity's finest soldiers. They came from every corner of human space. Answering the call, Captain Choi Dong-ho stood on the bridge of the assault carrier, Thunderbolt, and watched the ships arrive. He was 35 years old, young for a captain, but he had earned his rank in blood. 3 years ago, he had held a colony against raiders for 11 days, with only 200 soldiers. They called him the Wall after that. He did not like the name, but he understood why they gave it to him. His first officer. A tall woman named Kei Mira stepped beside him. The last transport just docked. We are at full strength. Dong-ho nodded. How are the soldiers? Scared? Excited? Ready? She hesitated. Sir, some of them are very young. I saw a private in the mess hall. He looked barely old enough to shave. What was his name? Shin Woo. Dong-ho made a mental note. He would find this Shin Woo later. A captain should know his soldiers, especially the young ones. They needed to know that someone saw them. Someone cared. We were all young once, he said. We learned. They will too. Down in the launch bay, Pilot Officer Beak J was checking his fighter for the third time. He was 28, with quick hands and quicker reflexes. Other pilots called him crazy. He preferred the word creative. To him, flying was not just a skill. It was art. And he was very, very good at art. His wingman, serious young woman named Osumin, walked over with 2 cups of coffee. "You are nervous," she said. It was not a question. "I am excited," Jay corrected. "There is a difference, is there?" He grinned. "When you are nervous, your hands shake. When you are excited, your heart beats faster." He tapped his chest. "My heart is beating very fast right now, but my hands are steady." Sumen shook her head, but she was smiling. "You are definitely crazy." "Probably," he agreed. "But I am also the best pilot in the fleet, so it balances out." In the troop transport hammer, Sergeant Major Han Yunbai gathered her Marines. The Hellwalkers, they called themselves. 150 soldiers, the best of the best. They were trained for the hardest missions. Drop into enemy territory. Hold the line against impossible odds. Rescue the ones who could not rescue themselves. Yunbai was 41 years old. She had been fighting since she was 19. Her body carried 17 scars, each one a story. Her face was calm, almost gentle, but her soldiers knew better. When the shooting started, she became something else entirely. Something the enemy soldiers saw in their nightmares. She stood before her Hellwalkers and looked at each face. Some were veterans who had fought beside her for years. Others were fresh from training, still brighted and eager. She loved them all. They were her family. "I will not give you a long speech," she said. Her voice was soft, but carried easily in the quiet bay. "You know why we are here? A people called for help. They are dying. Their children are dying." The galaxy looked away. We did not. She began to walk among them, meeting each soldier's eyes. "Some of you are wondering if we should be doing this. We have no treaty with the Veli, no agreement, no obligation." She paused beside a young soldier with scared eyes. "But obligation is not why we fight. We fight because there is evil in the universe and someone must stand against it. We fight because we are human, and humans do not ignore the screams of the innocent." She returned to the front of the bay. "I will not pretend otherwise. But death in service of the helpless is not a waste. It is a gift. It is the highest thing a soldier can give." She drew herself up tall. "We go to fight for strangers. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us Hellwalkers. And when we are done, the galaxy will remember what happened when Earth answered the call." The soldiers stomped their feet in unison. The sound was like thunder. 1 hour before the jump, a message arrived from the Galactic Council. It was broadcast on all frequencies, meant for every ship in the fleet to hear. "Admiral." Park Tae-ho read it aloud to his bridge crew. "To the United Earth Fleet, your planned intervention in Krath space is a violation of Galactic Statute 7742. All civilizations, under Council jurisdiction, are forbidden from interfering in the internal affairs of other species. The Krath Dominion's actions in the Veli system are a matter of Krath internal policy. Your interference will be considered an act of aggression against galactic peace. Turn back now or face severe consequences." The bridge was silent. Lieutenant Commander Kim Yuna watched the Admiral's face. It did not change. He set down the message pad calmly, as if he had just read a weather report. "Open a channel," he said. "Broadcast to all frequencies. I want the entire galaxy to hear this." Yuna's fingers moved across her console. "Channel open, sir. You are live." Tae-ho stood in front of the main viewport. Behind him, the fleet spread out like a constellation of fire. "This is Admiral Park Tae-ho of the United Earth Fleet. We have received your message, Galactic Council. We have read your statutes and your laws. And we have made our decision." His voice was steady and cold. "We do not recognize your authority over the innocent. We do not accept laws that protect murderers and abandon victims. We do not bow to those who watch genocide and call it peace." He stepped closer to the camera. The Veli called for aid. "Not to you. You have proven that you will not answer." They called into the darkness, hoping someone, anyone would hear. We heard, and we answer. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of all humanity. To the Krath Dominion, you have attacked a peaceful people. You have killed their children. You have burned their cities. We are coming for you. Not for conquest. Not for revenge. We are coming because it is right. And when we arrive, you will learn why our kind was feared long before we reached the stars. He straightened his uniform. To the rest of the galaxy, watch carefully. This is who we are. This is what humanity does. We do not look away. We do not hide. We do not abandon the helpless to their fate. His eyes were like fire now. The universe is dark and cold and full of those who prey on the weak. But there is a light in that darkness now. A fire that will not go out. And it burns with a single purpose, to stand for those who cannot stand for themselves. He turned to Yuna. End transmission. The bridge was quiet. Yuna realized her hands were shaking. But it was not fear. It was something else. Something that felt like the first breath after drowning. Dr. Lee Haon stepped forward. His voice was soft. Admiral, you have just defied the Galactic Council in front of the entire galaxy. Tejo smiled. It was a small smile, tired but genuine. I know. There will be consequences. I know that too. He looked out at the stars. But somewhere on Velis Prime, a mother just heard that message. She knows now that someone is coming. Someone heard her prayers. He turned back to his crew. That is worth any consequence. He walked to his command chair and sat down. All ships. This is the Admiral. Jump drives to full power. We leave in 10 minutes. He gripped the arms of his chair. Let us show the galaxy what happens when humanity goes to war. Across the fleet, engines hummed with power. Soldiers checked their weapons one last time. Pilots climbed into their cockpits. And in the quiet moments before the jump, 12,000 men and women thought of home, thought of family, thought of the strangers they were about to die for. Then the stars stretched into lines of light, and the fleet vanished into the void. The human fleet emerged from jump space directly into hell. Velis Prime hung in the void. A beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents, but it was burning. From orbit, they could see the fires. Hundreds of them, scattered across the surface like open wounds. Cities that had stood for 10,000 years were now columns of smoke rising into the sky and surrounding the planet. Blocking out the stars was the Krath fleet, 140 warships. Massive vessels, covered in spikes and dark metal, built for intimidation as much as war. They hung in formation around the planet like vultures waiting for a corpse to stop twitching. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Lieutenant Commander Kim Yuna counted the enemy ships. Her stomach dropped. Admiral, they outnumber us 3-1. Admiral Partejo did not flinch. I can count, Lieutenant Commander, sir. Our tactical analysis suggests I do not care about tactical analysis. His voice was calm. Those are Veli cities burning down there. Those are Veli children dying while we talk. We did not come this far to turn back because the odds are bad. He pressed a button on his console. All ships, battle formations. Weapons free. Fire at will. Across the void, the Krath flagship Dominator received news of the human arrival. Warlord Dren sat on his command throne, a massive creature of gray skin and black eyes. He had conquered 12 worlds. He had burned civilizations to ash. The Veli were just another trophy, another weak species to be crushed and forgotten. When his sensors officer reported the human ships, Dren laughed. It was a horrible sound, like stones grinding together. Humans. He leaned forward, showing teeth like knives. The primitives from the Forbidden Sector? How amusing. How many ships? 47. Warlord. Dren laughed again. 47 against 140. They are brave. I will give them that. Brave and stupid. He waved a clawed hand. Destroy them. Make it quick. I want to return to the surface bombardment before dinner. The Krath fleet began to move. They were confident. They had never lost a battle. They had never faced an enemy that could match their power. The humans were just insects to be crushed. They were wrong. The first human salvo crossed the void like a wave of fire. Railgun rounds, accelerated to a fraction of the speed of light, slammed into the Krath formation. These were not the energy weapons that most galactic species used. These were kinetic weapons, simple in principle, but devastating in practice. A chunk of metal moving fast enough becomes a weapon that no shield can stop. 3 Krath destroyers exploded in the first 10 seconds. Warlord, Dren stopped laughing. On the Thunderbolt. Captain Choi Dong-ho watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The human fleet was outnumbered, yes. But numbers were not everything. Speed mattered. Coordination mattered. And most of all, mattered. Launch all fighters, he ordered. Tell Beak J to lead the attack on their carrier group. I want those flight decks destroyed before they can launch their own fighters. In the launch bay, Pilot Officer Beak J was already climbing into his cockpit. His fighter, a sleek machine he had named Stormcrow, hummed with power. He pulled on his helmet and grinned. All right, Stormcrow, let us go make some new friends. His squadron launched into the chaos of battle. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Energy beams cut through the void. Ships died in fire and silence. But Jay flew through it all like water flowing through rocks. He did not fight the chaos. He danced with it. Crow Squadron, follow my lead. We are going straight through their formation. His wingman responded immediately. Straight through? Are you insane? Probably. But look at their formation. They are spread out to surround us. That means their center is weak. If we punch through fast enough, we can hit their carriers before they realize what is happening. It was crazy. It was reckless. It was exactly the kind of thing that Krath commanders would never expect. Because the Krath fought with overwhelming force, they surrounded their enemies and crushed them slowly. They did not understand enemies who attacked when outnumbered. They did not understand enemies who charged directly into the heart of their formation. They did not understand humans. Jay's squadron screamed through the Krath center. Dodging fire that should have killed them a dozen times, they lost 2 pilots in the first minute. 3 more in the second? But the survivors reached the carriers. All fighters target the flight decks. 1 pass, maximum firepower. Go. The human fighters unleashed everything they had. Missiles, cannons, even ramming. In one desperate case, when a pilot's weapons failed and he drove his crippled fighter directly into a carrier's exposed reactor, 4 Krath carriers died in 60 seconds. Thousands of enemy fighters, still locked in their launch bays, never got the chance to fly. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral Tejo received reports from across the fleet. The news was mixed. Human ships were dying, yes, but so were Krath ships. And the humans were dying slower. Their command structure is breaking down, Dr. Lehine reported. He had been monitoring Krath communications, feeding false orders into their network. They are not used to enemies who fight back this hard. Half of their captains are waiting for orders from the flagship. The other half are trying to retreat, Lieutenant Commander Yuna added. Their shields are powerful against energy weapons. But our railguns are punching through. They have no defense against kinetic impacts at these velocities. Ho nodded. Then let us give them more kinetic impacts. All ships concentrate fire on their flagship. Cut the head off the snake. The Indomitable led the charge. 15 human battleships formed a wedge and drove directly toward the Dominator. Krath ships tried to intercept them, but human destroyers screened the advance, sacrificing themselves to keep the battleships moving forward. On the Dominator, Warlord Dren watched the humans come. For the first time in his long life, he felt something unfamiliar. Fear. What are they doing? He demanded. Why are they not retreating? We outnumber them. His tactical officer's voice was shaking. They are. They are not stopping, Warlord. They are accelerating. Increase fire. All weapons on the lead ship. The Indomitable took hit after hit. Her shields flared and died. Her hull buckled and tore. Fires burned on 3 decks. 200 crew members died in the first barrage alone, but she kept coming. Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge. blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. Smoke filled the air. Around him, his crew worked frantically, rerouting power, sealing breaches, keeping the ship alive through sheer determination. Distance to enemy flagship? He asked. 2,000 kilometers in closing, Yuna answered. Her voice was steady despite the chaos. Fire the main batteries? The Indomitable's railguns spoke. 8 rounds, each one the size of a small car, crossed the void in less than a second. They struck the Dominator's port side and punched through armor, shields and hull like needles through paper. The Krath flagship shuddered. Explosions rippled across her surface. Her engines flickered and died, and across the Krath fleet something broke. Their commanders had believed themselves invincible. They had never seen their flagship wounded. They had never faced an enemy willing to die to reach them. The retreat began slowly, then became a rout. Krath ships turned and fled, jumping to safety, abandoning their wounded flagship and their mission. In 15 minutes, the battle was over. On the bridge of the Dominator, Warlord Dren stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His fleet was gone. His ship was crippled. And through the viewport, he could see human ships moving into orbit, preparing to land troops on the surface. This is impossible, he whispered. We are the Krath. We do not lose. We cannot lose. But they had lost. Against a species they had dismissed as primitives. Against an enemy that should have been too weak, too small, too young to matter. Admiral Tejo's voice came over an open channel, broadcast to every ship in the system. Krath Warlord, your fleet is broken. Your flagship is disabled. Surrender now, and your crew will be treated fairly. Continue fighting, and we will finish what we started. Dren wanted to refuse. He wanted to fight to the last. But when he looked at his crew, he saw the truth in their eyes. They were beaten. The fire was gone. We surrender, he said. The words tasted like Ashdot in orbit above Velis Prime. Human soldiers cheered. They had won. Against all odds, against an enemy 3 times their size, they had won. But Admiral Tejo did not celebrate. He looked down at the burning planet below. The battle in space is over, he said quietly, but the battle on the ground has just begun. Signal Captain Choi. Tell him to prepare the Marines for landing. He paused. The Veli are still dying down there. We need to move fast. Far below, in the ruins of a city that had once been beautiful. An elderly Veli named Tova looked up at the sky and saw the flashes of the space battle ending. She did not know what it meant. She only knew that someone had come, for the first time in weeks. She allowed herself to hope. The dropships fell through fire and smoke. Sergeant Major Han Yunbai gripped the handrail as her transport shook violently. Through the small viewport, she could see the surface of Velis Prime rushing up to meet them. It was worse than she had imagined. The cities were not just burning, they were gone, reduced to fields of rubble and ash. 60 seconds to landing, the pilot announced. Enemy fire is heavy. Hold on. Around her, her Hellwalkers sat in silence. Their faces were painted in camouflage. Their weapons were ready. But Yunbai could see the tension in their shoulders, the tightness around their eyes. They had seen war before, but they had never seen anything like this. Private First Class Shin Wu sat across from her. He was young, maybe 20, with soft features that had not yet hardened into the mask that combat gave to soldiers. His hands were shaking slightly as he checked his rifle for the 4th time. EU and Dash Bai caught his eye and nodded once. It was a small gesture, but it said everything it needed to say. I see you. You are not alone. Stay close to me. Wu nodded back. His hands stopped shaking. The dropship hit the ground hard, and the rear ramp dropped. Yunbai was the first one out, moving low and fast, scanning for threats. What she saw made her blood freeze. They had landed at the edge of a refugee camp. Thousands of Veli huddled together in the ruins of what had once been a park. They were small creatures, barely 4 feet tall, with soft blue skin and large dark eyes. They looked like children, even the adults, fragile, helpless in Krath, Soldiers were advancing toward them from 3 directions. Hellwalkers, defensive positions. UNB shouted, "Form a perimeter around the civilians. Nothing gets through. Nothing." Her soldiers spread out in a practiced pattern, taking cover behind rubble and fallen trees. The Veli refugees watched them with wide, terrified eyes. They did not know what these strange creatures in armor were. They did not know if the humans were friends or just another kind of enemy. An elderly Veli stepped forward. Her skin was pale, almost gray, and she walked with difficulty, leaning on a twisted piece of metal like a cane. Her name was Tova, though the humans did not know that yet. She had been a teacher once before the Krath came. Now she was just a survivor. "Who are you?" she asked in accented but understandable common. "Why are you here?" Yon Bai knelt to meet her eyes. "We heard your call for help. We came you." "You came for us?" Tova's voice cracked. "But we are strangers. We are nothing to you. You called for help. That is enough." The first Krath attack came 30 seconds later. They emerged from the smoke like nightmares. Massive armored figures with weapons that glowed with cruel energy. They expected easy prey. They expected the usual Veli response of fear and submission. They did not expect humans. EUNB's rifle spoke first. A burst of kinetic rounds that caught the lead Krath soldier in the chest and dropped him before he even knew he was in danger. Then the rest of her Hellwalkers opened fire, and the street became a killing ground. The Krath were tough. Their armor was thick, and they fought with savage fury. But humans fought differently. They fought as a unit, covering each other, moving and firing in perfect coordination. Where the Krath relied on individual strength, humans relied on teamwork, and where the Krath fought for conquest, humans fought for the refugees behind them. Private Shin Wu found himself on the eastern edge of the perimeter. Holding a gap between 2 ruined buildings, Krath soldiers kept coming, wave after wave, and he kept firing. His rifle grew hot in his hands. His shoulder ached from the recoil. But he did not stop. Then he heard the crying. It was coming from a collapsed building to his left. A high, thin sound, like a wounded animal. No, not an animal. A child. Wu looked at the building, then at the Krath advancing toward him, then back at the building. He had maybe 30 seconds before the next wave hit. He ran. The building was unstable, groaning with every step he took. Dust and debris fell around him. But he followed the crying until he found her, a Veli child, no more than 5 years old, trapped under a fallen beam. Her leg was crushed. She looked up at him with eyes full of pain and terror. "It is okay," Wu said. He did not know if she understood his words, but he hoped she understood his tone. "I am going to get you out." He grabbed the beam and pulled. It was heavy, too heavy for one person. But he pulled anyway, straining until his muscles screamed and his vision blurred with effort. The beam shifted.
Ow.
2 inches enough. He reached down and pulled the child free, cradling her against his chest. She clung to him, her small arms wrapped around his neck. "I have you. You are safe." He turned to leave and found 3 Krath soldiers blocking the exit. Wu had one hand holding the child. His rifle was slung across his back, useless. He had a pistol on his hip, but he would have to drop the child to reach it. He did not drop the child. Instead, he charged. The Krath soldiers were so surprised that they hesitated for a critical half-second. Wu used that half-second to crash into the first one, driving his shoulder into the alien's midsection with all his weight. The Krath stumbled backward, and Wu kept moving, spinning around the second soldier, using the chaos to create distance. A weapon fired behind him. He felt the impact in his back, a burning pain that spread through his body. But he kept running. Another shot hit his leg. He stumbled, but did not fall. He could see his unit ahead, could see Sergeant Major Han Yunbai turning toward him with wide eyes. He was so close, so close. A third shot caught him in the side. He went down on one knee, still holding the child, still refusing to let go. "Take her," he gasped, as a fellow soldier reached him. "Please, take her." The soldier grabbed the child from his arms. Only then did Wu allow himself to collapse. EUN-by was beside him in seconds. Medic, I need a medic here now. She pressed her hands against his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. Stay with me, Private. That is an order. Wu looked up at her with glazed eyes. Did I? Did I save her? You saved her. She is safe. He smiled. It was a strange expression on a face so young, in a moment so terrible. Good, that is. That is good. The medic arrived and Yunbai forced herself to step back. There was still fighting to do. There were still Veli to protect. She could not afford to stop, not even for one of her own. The battle lasted for hours of constant combat. 4 hours of holding the line against wave after wave of Krath attackers. The Hellwalkers lost 23 soldiers. They saved over 8,000 Veli refugees. Captain Choi Dong-ho arrived with reinforcements just as the last Krath assault broke against the human perimeter. He had a broken arm, hastily splinted, and blood on his uniform that was not all his own. He had led the assault on the main Krath command center personally after his subordinate officers were killed. The fighting there had been brutal, room to room, hand to hand in some places. But they had won. Warlord Dren was found in the command center, trying to destroy evidence of his orders. The orders to kill civilians. The orders to target children. The orders that had turned a peaceful world into a graveyard. EUN-by was the one who captured him. She walked into the room where he was being held and looked at him for a long moment. Outside, she could hear the crying of Veli survivors. She could see, in her memory, the mass graves that her soldiers had discovered. Thousands of bodies, many of them small. You are a monster, she said quietly. Dren raised his head. Even in defeat, there was arrogance in his eyes. I am a conqueror. Your kind will learn what that means soon enough. No. Yunbei's voice was flat. We will not. Because your empire is broken. Your fleet is destroyed. And you. She leaned close. You will face Veli justice. Whatever they decide, we will honor. Laughed the Veli. Those weak creatures. They will show mercy. They always do. Yes, Yunbai agreed. They will. That is what makes them better than you. She straightened. And that is what makes them worth saving. She walked out without looking back. That night, Yunbai visited the medical tent, where Private Shinwoo lay recovering. He was alive, barely. The doctor said it was a miracle. 3 shots at close range, and he had kept moving long enough to save the child. The child was there too, sitting beside his bed. Her name was Lyra, they had learned. She would not leave Wu's side. EU-by stood in the doorway, watching them. Wu was unconscious, his breathing shallow and labored. Lyra held his hand with both of hers, her small blue fingers wrapped around his larger, darker ones. Elder Tova appeared beside Yunbai. The old Veli's eyes were wet with tears. He saved her, Tova said. A stranger. A creature we had never met. He took shots that should have killed him to save a child who was not his. Yunbai nodded. That is who we are. I did not believe it when I first saw your ships. I thought you were just another conquering army. Another species come to take what we had. Tova shook her head slowly. I was wrong. I have lived for 90 years, and I have never seen anything like your kind. We are not perfect, Yunbai said. We have done terrible things in our history. Wars, genocides, cruelties that shame us still. Then why did you come? Why did you risk everything for strangers? Yunbai thought about the question for a long moment. Because we remember what it was like to be helpless, she finally said. Because we know what it means to cry out and have no one answer. We came because, in all the darkness of the universe, someone should be the light. Someone should answer the call. She looked at Lyra, still holding Wu's hand. Today, we were that someone. Tova reached out and took Yunbai's hand. Her grip was weak, fragile, but there was warmth in it. Thank you, she whispered. From all my people, thank you. And in the ruined city, under the light of unfamiliar stars, 2 species who had never met before stood together. One had called for help. The other had answered. And in that answer, something new was born. Something that would change the galaxy forever. The galaxy watched. On 1,000 worlds, across 100 species, beings gathered around screens and listened to broadcasts. They had heard about the humans, of course. The primitives from the Forbidden Sector. The violent species that the Galactic Council kept isolated for everyone's safety. But they had never seen humans in action. They had never seen what humanity could do. Now they saw. The images spread across every network. Human ships charging into battle against a fleet 3 times their size. Human soldiers dying to protect Valley refugees. A young human private, barely more than a child himself, taking 3 shots to save a Valley girl he had never met. The galaxy watched. The galaxy began to wonder. On Earth, the news arrived slowly. First confirmation of the fleet's arrival at Velis Prime, then reports of the battle in orbit, then silence. Terrible, endless silence as families waited for word of their loved ones. When the casualty lists finally came, the world grieved. 3,200 soldiers dead, 14 ships destroyed, 200 pilots who would never fly again. Names read aloud in memorial services across the planet. Faces displayed on screens, young and old, brave and afraid. All of them gone now. Admiral Park Tae-ho read every name himself. It took him 6 hours. When he finished, he stood alone on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking out at the stars that had claimed so many of his people. Lieutenant Commander Kim Yuna found him there, Admiral. The Galactic Council has summoned us to appear before them. They want to discuss our actions. Tae-ho did not turn from the viewport. Discuss? An interesting word. What they mean is punish. Probably. Yuna hesitated. Sir, you do not have to go. You could send a representative. No, Tae-ho finally turned. His face was tired, older than it had been a month ago. But his eyes were still iron. I gave the order that sent those soldiers to their deaths. I will stand before the council and face whatever comes. They died for something that mattered. I can do no less. The hearing took place on the council station, a massive structure at the center of galactic civilization. Representatives from 100 species filled the great chamber. They came to watch the primitives be punished. They came to see humanity humbled. Admiral Tae-ho walked into that chamber with his head held high. Beside him walked Dr. Lee Hain and Sergeant Major Han Yun Bai. 3 humans standing before the judgment of the galaxy, Councilor Veth. A tall creature with silver skin and cold eyes spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber like the tolling of a bell. Humanity. You have violated Galactic Statute 7742. You have interfered in the internal affairs of a sovereign civilization. You have attacked the Krath's dominion without provocation. You have disrupted the peace of the galaxy. He leaned forward. What do you have to say for yourselves? Tae-ho stepped forward. May I speak? You may. The old admiral looked around the chamber. So many eyes watching him. So many species who had done nothing while the Valley burned. So many civilizations that had looked away. You call what we did interference? He began. His voice was calm, almost conversational. You call it a violation of your laws. You call it a disruption of peace. He paused. I call it something else. I call it answering a cry for help. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Veth raised a hand for silence. The Valley called for aid, Tae-ho continued. They sent a signal into the darkness, begging for anyone to hear. Their cities were burning. Their children were dying. And this council, this great assembly of civilized species, did nothing. You watched. You discussed. You debated. His voice hardened. And while you debated, the Krath killed them. Thousands. Tens of thousands. The Valley are a peaceful people. They had no weapons. They had no army. All they had was a prayer that someone would come. He stepped closer to the council podium. We heard that prayer. We answered it. We sent our soldiers across 300 light years to fight for strangers. We lost 3,000 of our people. 3,000 sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, friends and lovers. They died on a world that was not theirs, for a species they had never met. His voice cracked slightly, and I am proud of every single one of them. Counselor Vet's face was unreadable. You admit to violating our laws? I admit to ignoring laws that protect murderers and abandoned victims. I admit to refusing to watch genocide and call it peace. Tejo met Veth's eyes without flinching. If that is a crime in this galaxy, then yes, I am guilty. Humanity is guilty, and we would do it again tomorrow. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species shouted in anger. Others sat in stunned silence. A few Tejo noticed, looked at him with something like respect. Sergeant Major Han Yunbai stepped forward. May I speak? She asked. Veth hesitated, then nodded. EUN-Bai walked to the center of the chamber. Her uniform was clean, but if you looked closely, you could see the places where it had been patched, where blood had been washed out. I was on the ground, she said. I saw what the Krath did. I saw the mass graves. I saw the bodies of children stacked like garbage. Her voice was steady, but there was fire beneath it. And I saw my soldiers die to stop it. I saw a young man, barely 20 years old, take 3 shots to save a Veli girl he had never met. He almost died. He almost bled out in my arms. And do you know what he asked me? He asked if the child was safe. Not about himself. Not about his pain. He asked about a stranger's child. She turned slowly, looking at every face in the chamber. That is who we are. That is what humanity does. We do not watch innocent people die and tell ourselves it is not our concern. We do not hide behind laws and statutes while children burn. Her voice rose. You call us primitive? You call us violent. You are right. We are violent. We are violent toward those who prey on the weak. We are violent toward those who kill the helpless. And if that makes us barbarians in your eyes, then we will be the most magnificent barbarians this galaxy has ever seen. The chamber fell silent. Dr. Lee Hine spoke last. His voice was soft, scholarly, but it carried clearly in the quiet. I study languages, he said. I have spent my life learning how different species communicate, and I have learned something important. Every species, no matter how different, has a word for help. Every species, no matter how alien, understands the cry of the desperate. He looked up at the council. The Veli cried for help. They sent that cry in every direction, hoping someone would hear. And out of all the species in this galaxy, out of all the civilizations that call themselves advanced and enlightened, only one answered. He spread his hands. What does that say about us? And what does it say about you? The council deliberated for 3 days. In the end, they backed down. There would be no punishment, no sanctions, no consequences. The official reason was diplomatic complexity, but everyone knew the truth. Across the galaxy, voices were being raised. Oppressed species conquered peoples. Those who had suffered under the Council's policy of non-interference were all asking the same question. If we call for help, will the humans answer? The Council could not afford to make humanity a martyr. When the humans returned to their ships, they found a surprise waiting for them. Messages, thousands of them, from dozens of species across the galaxy. Some were simple. Thank you. Others were more complex. Requests for alliance. Offers of trade. Invitations to diplomatic talks, and some were heartbreaking. Pleas from species under Krath occupation, species facing extinction, species who had given up hope until they saw what humanity had done on Belus Prime. Admiral Tejo read through them in silence. When he finished, he sat back in his chair and closed his eyes. What do we do now? Yuna asked. We answer them, Tejo said. All of them. We tell them, we hear them. We tell them they are not alone. He opened his eyes. We started something on Velus Prime, something bigger than one battle, one war. We showed the galaxy that there is another way, that someone will fight for the helpless. He smiled, tired but genuine. We cannot stop now. On Velus Prime, the rebuilding had begun. Human engineers worked alongside Veli architects. Human doctors shared techniques with Veli healers. Two species who had been strangers a month ago were becoming something else. Something like family. The Veli had declared humanity eternal friends. They shared their healing technologies freely, advances that would save millions of human lives in the years to come. When asked why, Elder Tova gave a simple answer. You gave us something more precious than technology. You gave us hope. You gave us proof that there is goodness in the universe. How could we not give everything we have in return? A memorial was built at the site of the refugee camp where the Hellwalkers had made their stand. 3,200 names carved into white stone, surrounding a statue of a human soldier kneeling with a Veli child in his arms. Private First Class. Shinwu attended the dedication ceremony. He walked with a limp now, and he always would. The doctors had done their best, but some wounds never fully healed. Lyra, the child he had saved, held his hand throughout the ceremony. She had not left his side since that day in the ruins. Sergeant Major Han Yunbai found them after the speeches ended. She stood beside Wu for a moment, looking at the names carved in stone. So many friends among them? So many soldiers who would never go home. How are you feeling? She asked. Alive, Wu said. I did not expect to be alive. None of us did. She put a hand on his shoulder. You did good, Private. You did very good. Elder Tova approached them. She was stronger now than she had been a month ago. The healing had begun, for her people and for herself. I wanted to thank you, she said to Wu. You're saving Lyra? For saving all of us? Wu shook his head. I just did what any human would do. Oh. Tova's voice was firm. You did what you would do, and that is extraordinary. She reached up and placed a Veli flower in his hand. It was small, delicate, with petals that seemed to glow with inner light. This is a memory flower. We plant them on the graves of those we wish to honor. It blooms once a year, on the anniversary of their sacrifice. She looked at the memorial at the 3,000 names carved in stone. I will plant one for each of them, she said, so that my people will never forget. So that 1,000 years from now, Veli children will come to this place and remember the strangers who died for them. Wu looked at the flower in his hand. His eyes were wet. Thank you, he whispered. Tova smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was warmth in it. No, she said. Thank you. You came for strangers. You bled for strangers. You are the strangest, most beautiful creatures this galaxy has ever seen. Above them, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, other species were watching. Other civilizations were wondering. Other desperate peoples were asking if they, too, might call for help and have it answered. And somewhere on Earth, in a command center that watched the stars, Admiral Park Tae-ho received another message. Another cry from another world. Another species facing extinction. He read it once, then twice. Then he pressed the button that connected him to the fleet. All ships, he said, prepare for deployment, because that was who humanity was. That was what they did. They heard the cries in the darkness, and they answered. With fire, with fury, with everything they had, they were the light in the void. The fire that answered the helpless. The strange, violent, magnificent species that would not look away, and the galaxy would never be the same.